We now will have an update from the startup competition. If you have not been, again, it's in this room with 400 seats. I hear it's very, very, very crowded, so which is good. And here are a few judges. Thank you as well for all your efforts. And we have today right now we have Olivier Creiche, who is the head of SixApart Europe. We have Philippe Collombel, respected VC in Europe from Partech International. We have Ben Metcalf, who is coordinating the startup room. Gary Shainberg, who is with British Telecom. Should I say BT? BT, with BT. And David Hornick from August in Silicon Valley. So a great, great panel. Would you guys explain us a little bit what's happening? Is it crowded?
Yes, it's been very busy. I know that many of you have taken time out today to check out the startup competition that was going on. Thank you very much for your time in doing so. It was great to see you there. But yes, we had some amazing companies demo today, and I'd like to thank the judges for taking time to check them out. So just starting off, I mean, what kinds of trends and general themes did you guys see in the companies that you were looking at? Perhaps David, to begin with.
Well, one thing's perfectly clear, which is you can see the influence of that which has come before. And in particular, I'd say that the Facebookification of the web is upon us. So those of you who haven't sat down and watched, everything is a feed these days, and which I don't have a problem with. I think that there's a very logical and rational paradigm for lots of information consumption, but it's the feedification of the web, based as far as I can tell. So that's an interesting thing to watch. There were a couple of startups that were in the Business 2.0 world that were talking about how do you manage communications within companies, and again, everything came through in a feed. How do you manage the experience of planning a trip? Everything's through a feed, etc. So I think that it's interesting to watch how paradigms that resonate in one successful platform then make their way into lots of other experiences.
Gary, themes that you might think of in your group?
Again, like David said, in our group we had some very clear sectors. Again, based around content feed, contextual-based advertising, and the Web 2.0 environment. But for me, the quality and the effort that the companies put into their presentation, and how they presented themselves and the message of their company, for want of a better term, the elevator pitch in the 7 minutes, I think was exceptional. And I think all the companies, the ones that I judged on and the ones that I watched, I think should be commended for the effort they put in to their sessions. And when I look at comparing that to some of the projects that we're working on, for instance, the Technology Pioneers program with the World Economic Forum, which we announced the winners of yesterday for this year, for next year, sorry. The quality is phenomenal compared to even that. So I think they should all be commended for that.
And Philippe, in addition to themes, anything, your thoughts on business models and things that were fundable as well in your group?
Just to complement first, I was surprised because there are a number of startups dealing with mobile. I think the iPhone had changed the picture. People believe that there can be an ecosystem, a more open system in the mobile world. I agree with you that there was also a lot of things around contextual advertising. And the third theme that struck me is that there was a lot of companies around search engine dealing with videos, which is a major issue on the web today. As regards your question, I think yes, what surprised me compared to the previous years is the efforts put by the startups into finding viable business models very early in their life cycle. I think they have been coached. I think they realize that seed investment is not easy these days, and that they need to come with convincing arguments in front of the VCs.
And finally, Olivier, again, what kind of themes did you see and other thoughts from the group that you looked over?
Well, the one that struck me most in the group that I was a judge on was the use of 3D within the browser, which I think is a good indication of some of the ways that the web is going to develop in the next few years. It's already pretty impressive user experience, being able to navigate in a 3D world directly from your browser. Things have gotten a lot better and smoother. Probably a lot of great stuff in coming months and years for the gaming industry in particular, but also for a lot of other potential usage.
Interesting. Yes, there was definitely a lot of 3D, a lot of mobile applications on there, things that were coming away from the traditional browser. And also some level of social network startups as well. What kinds of things do you think in terms of the future of that versus the things that you saw today? Do you think that the phones and 3D are the future, or do you think there's still something based on the things that you saw today? I guess to you, first of all, David.
Sure. No, you know, there's no question that mobile is the future, but it's also this interconnectivity. So if you, I mean, everybody's looking at this, everybody's working on it. We'll have a panel later on talking about, you know, the feeds and feed connects and how all these services are working together. And I think that it's an opportunity and it's a challenge. If you look at the businesses that are drawing upon other services to both get customers and get functionality, you know, who is going to aggregate the users? Where is the value going to come in? And who's going to be able to extract value in the process? And I think that that's a big open question. And so a lot of these businesses were presenting experiences that were being built by and large by other services that are being built on top of either their community or their particular storage system, et cetera. And the only question is who's going to get paid for all of these things. So I continue to see these companies that present to me and talk about the sort of the widgets being placed out in the web. And the question is, how do you get paid for that when you're living in the MySpace and Facebook and Bebo environments? So that'll be an interesting open question over time.
So one of the things, obviously, to think about is that we are in an economic downturn, for want of a better term. And do you guys think that you saw levels of innovation and also levels of business model that sort of will survive that? I guess starting with you, Gary.
There was certainly a high level of innovation, and as we said earlier, some great ideas, and people are realizing that they've got to be innovative in their ideas to make it attractive for people to use. The one thing that I would say is that people need to think about their business model. You know, there's no point in coming up with a great idea unless you're very wealthy already and are just doing it philanthropically. You've got to come up with a way of making money. And you know, and people are saying that we can make money, but sometimes the business case doesn't stack up. And in the current climate, people need to put a lot more effort into understanding their business model.
And I guess because it's so important, the same question to my right as well. What do you guys think about the business models that you saw from the startups to today?
Well, interestingly enough, in our panel, most of the companies presenting had several business models. They were not solely relying on business-to-consumer types of business models. Most of them had a B2B aspect of it and a B2C aspect in addition. Like they're not putting all their eggs in the same nest, you know.
And same question, Philippe?
Yeah, exactly the same remarks. I think, as I told before, they made huge efforts to come with business models. I agree that they were not all convincing. And I agree with your remarks that a lot of mixed business models trying to go B2B as well as B2C at the same time, it may not be that easy for a startup.
So I do think it's an interesting time economically, right? I mean, for the several years preceding now, the venture community, myself included, were willing to suspend disbelief about a lot of things in the name of excitement and energy around interesting technologies that had many of opportunities for business models, but there was not necessarily a clear winner, or they weren't making money, or you didn't want them to make money. You wanted them to get to scale before trying to figure out how to make money. And I think that what's happened is that world is gone. I mean, you know, overnight that world disappeared, and the idea that that you have an exciting opportunity, oh gee, let's chase scale before you understand and appreciate that there is a business model and an economic opportunity, it is very hard to get funded right now. And I think that there are going to be a lot of orphaned startups that got started in a world where it was perfectly acceptable to say, hey, we have a great idea that we will figure out how to monetize, and now the assumption is, oh, I'm not going to fund you unless you've figured that out. And if you don't bridge that gap with the money that you have, I think there are going to be startups that have a tough time getting funded. So if you have to, if there's one thing that I think we'll see a lot in 2009, it is that challenge for startups, where there was a certain set of assumptions about what it would take to get funded in the future, and that rug was pulled out from under a lot of startups, and now they're going to have to rethink and really hunker down and figure out how to build a real business in order to get that next round of financing.
Wonderful. Well, I think there has been some amazing pieces of advice there, and it was definitely an interesting day for me as well. I'm sure it was for you too. The votes have been taken and counted, and I believe we'll be announcing the winners at 3:30 tomorrow, and they will be able to demo their startup to you here on the main stage. So we look forward to that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.